Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole, and this will be the announcement for Week 10 of Political Science 3753 Common Law for the Fall 2024 term. It's Sunday evening, October 20th. Okay, everybody, what we have on the syllabus this week is Fourth Amendment issues, search and seizure. And I know this will be important to those of you criminal justice majors looking at doing police work. The Fourth Amendment says there should be no unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay, and if a warrant is required, okay, there has to be probable cause and it has to be specific, naming what it is that you're searching for. So, not every search requires a warrant, but when a warrant is required, there are certain limitations and requirements that the Fourth Amendment imposes. In the notes for lectures 17 and 18, we go through several exceptions to the warrant requirement. And it's worth looking at each of those. One very important one is for automobile searches. So the courts stipulated that the automobile being mobile and easily moved, there aren't as many restrictions on searching an automobile as there would be, say, for searching someone's home. Okay. Another important exception is the so-called limited stop or stop and frisk situation that the Supreme Court permitted in the case of Terry versus Ohio, 1968. Now, that was still under Chief Justice Warren, but that was one of the more conservative decisions friendlier to law enforcement that the Warren court ever issued. Of course, these are politically controversial because it is argued very often that it is people of color who may be singled out for the stop and frisk searches, and that's an issue that I know many of you in law enforcement and criminal justice majors will be familiar with. We go on in the notes for lecture 18 to talk about electronic eavesdropping, including what happened subsequent to the passage of the Patriot Act, the revelations of Edward Snowden, and the subsequent USA Freedom Act that extended the Patriot Act but imposed some limitations. There's also the case of Carpenter versus United States, 2018, which involved using cell phone data to establish the whereabouts of a suspect while a crime was being committed. Did that individual have an expectation of privacy while using the cell phone? Okay, that's the issue that was raised in Carpenter versus United States. Now, everybody, in Fourth Amendment jurisprudence, a very important issue is the exclusionary rule, okay, which means under certain circumstances, evidence may have to be excluded. If the requirements of the Fourth Amendment are not met, then the evidence was obtained in an unconstitutional way and it cannot be admitted. That goes back to Mapp versus Ohio, 1961. Now, in the meantime, some exceptions to the exclusionary rule have been carved out. Broad enough that some people say it's broad enough to drive a car through, shall we say, or a truck. The most important case there was United States versus Leon, 1984, which I believe is the case in which they laid out the good faith exception to the exclusionary rule. The idea being, even if there was something wrong with the warrant, that's the fault of the judge who issued the warrant, not the officer who presumably was acting in good faith. So long as the evidence was collected in good faith, it's admissible under United States versus Leon, 1984, even if there was some problem with the search warrant. Okay, but since Mapp versus Ohio was laid down, been considerable exceptions carved out to the exclusionary rule, the most important coming in United States versus Leon, 1984. Now, everybody, we've taken a bit of a hiatus from discussions and quizzes. I'm going to try to get in discussion 5, not this week, but next week. Many of you will be seeing this Monday the 21st. We'll do the discussion the 28th and 29th, right after next weekend. Now, what we're asking you to look at is an article that goes back a few years, but I think it's still pertinent. about the use of plea bargains in the criminal justice system, which I know many of you will be very, very familiar with. So the issue that's raised is, have we compromised defendants' due process by the extent of the use of the exclusionary rule, which of course is quite extensive. Now, this article does go back a few years. It's not all that long ago, 2017. It's always provoked a good deal of discussion and interest from my students whenever I've assigned it. So I hope you will take a look at that this week, or over this coming weekend, and be ready to discuss that on 9, Monday and Tuesday the 28th and 29th, and that will be discussion number 5. All right, so that will then wind up our look at due process and search and seizure. What we have left after that is freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and equal protection issues to wind up the term. All right, so take a look at the search and seizure material this week, the notes for lectures 17 and 18, and get ready for a discussion next week on criminal procedure and plea bargaining. We'll talk to you again before that discussion about a week from now at this time. So take it easy, study hard. We'll be talking to you about a week from now. Thanks a lot.